Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, continues now. Pete Sepp with me, president of the National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. I'm not really fond of unions because usually they're all done by force. I'm not a force guy, but the National Taxpayers Union is a great union because you can just join and leave whenever you want to. But I've stayed involved with them for more than 25 years because they do just a great job. All the way on the local level, they partner with you and provide case studies and guidance of how to make sure your taxes are appropriate. Hey, everybody's for paying their fair share. But how do you make sure that they're proper taxes, that they're minimal, that they don't cause a burden on the American people, but yet they can pay for the proper role of limited government? I mean, that's a sweet spot we're all looking for. Well, the National Taxpayers Union does that on the local level, partnering with you all the way to the national level, and they even participate in some world forums, helping other countries reduce their taxes as well. And Pete's the mastermind behind it all. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Always great to be here.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, we're about at the end of the congressional session, right?
Yeah, coming up on the end. And of course, there are still last-minute issues that are trying to be resolved, a few encouraging signs, and the entire appropriation cycle will begin again pretty early next year. We also have yet another so-called fiscal cliff coming up on January 30th, when the agreement that Congress reached to keep the federal government open expires yet again. So it's just continuing hopeful bouts and good pieces of legislation gradually making their way through, and then these steps backward.
Tell me how this works then, because the Republicans said, hey, we've just got a clean bill. It doesn't, cut a bunch of stuff. It doesn't add a bunch of stuff. It's just what it really was we're going to do the Joe Biden budget, and the Republicans were all for it. The Democrats rioted and wanted more, and they wanted changes, and they wanted this and that back. And, it was very complicated for the American people to understand. But at the end of the day, what do? We just continued business as usual, kicked the can down the road? Is that what we did?
We kicked the can down the road, maybe not as far as we have in the past. I guess that's one way you could look at it.
That's good news. You got to take something, right?
That's right. And the president proposed rescissions to Congress. Those are when the executive branch is saying, look, this money that Congress appropriated, we don't want it anymore. We don't need it anymore. We're proposing to reduce the deficit with that money instead of spend it. Congress has to vote up or down to say, yeah, okay, let's claw the money back. They've done
and
that.
Double thumbs up for the president on those things, right?
That's right. That's about $15 billion with a B. Hey, that's a start. We're still talking about a government that spends more than $6 trillion a year. That's a whole lot more zeros, but step in the right direction.
What are they going to run on for 2026 unless they get something significant? I mean, it's hard just to say, oh, we held the line and continue with Joe's budget. If they're not careful, they'll get the government shut down again. And if it shuts down again, the Republicans in an election year will get the blame. I don't like that, but I kind of see that being the reality. What do you think? What do they need to do? What would you recommend?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. The first, of course, is taking credit for the tax relief that's provided in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Many people believe that bill only just continued the tax relief that was going to expire anyway at the end of this year. Well, it did that, but it also did a number of other important things. It dramatically expanded some of the deductions that small businesses can take for buying new equipment and growing. It made permanent some of the expensing provisions for large businesses and the research and development that they do. Those are important signals to the business community to hire more people, to keep growing. There are other headwinds against businesses right now that might counteract some of those provisions, but I think Republicans have the right to brag about that. They can also brag about the fact that they are finally slowing the growth of one of the country's biggest entitlement programs, Medicaid, riddled with fraud. It was expanded under Barack Obama to ridiculous lengths where able-bodied adults were getting Medicaid benefits who didn't need them, who could actually get private insurance out in the marketplace. They can take credit for saying we're starting to reform that program so that it is affordable, sustainable, and targeted at the right people. That's hard to explain in a soundbite, right? They also still...
Yeah, but it's easy to let people know, though, that we are slowing the growth of government. And I think you could create some good headlines. You know, the liberals are great at creating one-liners that just zingers that do really well. We as conservatives need to do better at that.
That's right.
But I think we need to slow the growth. I think that's a wise move. I want more than that, but we've got to start somewhere. And what we can't do is be critical of every single effort they make. I mean, at some point, you just believe like there's no hope. No, that's a bad omen, too. We need to really say, hey, there's a lot of good happening. We need a lot more good. Don't get me wrong, but let's take what we get and let's make hay with it. Let's, so, all right. So we got tax relief to some degree. We need more, obviously, but hey, we've got a good start. What else can they brag about?
I think they will have the opportunity to brag if they use the next so-called budget reconciliation process to concentrate on some of the affordability problems that Americans are having. The fact is, it's very tough to be able to get into a single-family home or even afford rent right now. Food prices, well, the increases are finally starting to slow down, but it's not like there have been dramatic pullbacks in all of the grocery bills that folks are experiencing.
Well, I'm thinking Donald should give us all a Christmas present and just abolish the IRS entirely.
And there is more room to brag. One very encouraging sign is progress on what's called the Taxpayer Assistance and Service Act. This is a top-to-bottom overhaul of the way the IRS treats taxpayers. And parts of that bill, and it was introduced on the Senate good 6 months ago now, parts of that bill are passing through the House of Representatives piecemeal and the Senate and getting signed into law. The most recent progress was something called the IRS Math Act, meaning that when the IRS sends you a notice in the mail saying, well, your arithmetic is wrong or you don't qualify for a given tax credit or deduction, they have to explain in plain English not only what the problem is, why they reached that calculation, and what you as a taxpayer can do to appeal the IRS's ruling or figure out some other assistance through somebody like the Taxpayer Advocate Service, which we lobbied for years ago. So
that's huge, though, because, again, one of the big criticisms I have about the IRS is it's one thing to pay taxes. It's another thing to be in fear, even when you try to comply to the best of your ability, right? Yeah. If I am willing to sign the form under the penalty of perjury, do I declare? And I do my very best to get an accountant or do whatever I do to document everything and put it all. When I get done, I don't have any confidence that I'm safe. I just feel like those clowns can come after me and it's date. Okay, this goes a long way to prevent or reduce a lot of that. And I think it's a great start. We need way more. I mean, I'd like to just abolish the IRS. I'd like to use apportionment taxes and tariffs to pay for the proper role of limited government. But at the same time, hey, anything we can do to take that boot off of our neck is a good thing, Pete.
Yeah, it certainly is. And other parts of the Taxpayer Assistance and Service Act are going to pass. I'm pretty confident of that. The House of Representatives...
Will they pass before this Congress ends, or will it have to be next year?
I think they will. In fact... the House is voting on 2 more provisions regarding supervisor approval of penalties within the IRS and expanding tax court access for citizens of the United States. Those 2 will probably get through the House this week, and I would not be surprised if the Senate acted on it before the end of the year. And the president gets to sign those into law, too.
And that would be huge, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we got to work on it. Every piece counts, and every effort we can make is a good thing, because even if it doesn't turn government around 180, it does slow government down. It does protect the American people. It is, it needs to be considered a win, folks, and not a tiny win, because when people are in fear of their government, that's a really bad thing. I'd love just to be able to sit down with the IRS and say, listen, I've done all that I can to honestly report and to do what I can. Let's just have a candid, appropriate way to move forward. Maybe a little bit of no harm, no foul kind of discussions. Maybe there's a lot of ways to go about this, and I think that's the start we're making. Are they just going to go home for Christmas, or do they got a lot of work between now and when?
Oh, yeah. Between
can you
now,
skip the break? This is just too good. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, between now and Christmas, for sure, they can get more work done. I think it's vital that they do. And in fact, we have a list of 10 bills that we call no-brainers. We compile this every year. They are bills that are nonpartisan or bipartisan in nature. In other words, it has support from both Democrats and Republicans, hasn't appeared on a previous one of our 15 lists, and has a common sense way of approaching taxpayers' problems. And
is this where we find out if Congress is naughty or nice?
That is absolutely right. And a couple of those bills that I mentioned, the Tax Court Improvement Act, for example, that's on the no-brainers list. They've got a chance to pass that and scratch one off a list. Another, the Unfunded Mandates Accountability and Transparency Act.
Let's go.
That includes all kinds of federal agencies that are not subject to unfunded mandate reporting. This would subject them to it. That's got Democrat and Republican support in the House. I think that's going to get teed up very soon. The Stop Secret Spending Act. This is a kind of transparency measure that exposes these federal contracts called other transaction agreements. This is about $40 billion of federal spending annually that's not reported on that great transparency website, usaspending.gov.
And that's really something that President Trump has been pushing on, too. So I think that once we start the ball rolling on that, all we got to do is educate the American people and push, and I think we can get that done.
Yeah, exactly. There's also the Sustainable Budget Act. Again, Democrats and Republicans on this bill in the House creates a fiscal commission aimed at proposing recommendations designed to improve the long-term fiscal outlook. Yeah, another commission is greeted with some skepticism, but I think Congress needs to get back into the practice of constantly evaluating ways to dig us out of this terrible fiscal hole. And if a commission can contribute even a couple shovelfuls of getting out of that hole, we should do it.
Amen to that. All right. Now, you are working on a study that you want to tell us about, right?
Yeah, this is a fascinating research project that we undertook. What we wanted to figure out was, okay, we know that Americans vote with their feet when it comes to tax burdens. You know, people leave California in droves for places like Florida and Texas, which are more responsible with their tax and their spending policies. But we wanted to boil it down to how often is this happening? So we looked at IRS data indicating how many taxpayers move into and out of a state each year, and we found Florida is the biggest winner right now in the IRS data. It gains a new resident every 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Texas, every 2 minutes, 53 seconds. And North Carolina, a somewhat distant third, every 6 minutes and 21 seconds. So people,
and I get that it's a distant third, Pete, but that's still just that's just insane. That's 10 people an hour almost, right?
That's right. And then you look at the other side of this question. California, and guess what, loses another taxpayer most frequently of all the states studied, all the 50 states. Every 1 minute, 44 seconds, somebody leaves the state of California. Every 2 minutes, 23 seconds, someone leaves the state of New York. Every 6
Wow.
minutes and 4 seconds, somebody leaves the state of Illinois. What do all of these states have in common? They have the highest tax burdens, or they're in the top 10 every year in the entire country. High income taxes, bad property taxes, and bad sales taxes. Losers across the board. And people understand that when they look at their wallets or they look at their bank accounts and say, I can't afford to live here anymore. And so they leave.
They used to sing California, here we come. Now it's California, now we're done. Right?
That's right.
All right, tell me about this. Is it just the tax policies causing that? Is it the illegal immigration issues causing? Did you get any causational data?
Now, taxes aren't the only thing that cause people to leave a state, but see, they're part of the overall problem of affordability. You can't blame Zoran Mamdani, the incoming mayor of New York, for saying, yeah, it's very hard to live here from an affordability standpoint. Now, he's got all the wrong answers to that problem.
Yeah, but he's got that point right.
That's right. That's right. And, there are other factors. The cost of housing is high in places like California, worse than they are in Texas or North Carolina or Florida. But even there, you do have a tax factor involved. Transfer taxes for owning a new home, property taxes, those are really high. They're barriers to entry for first-time homeowners. If you're a renter, well, your landlord is paying all of those taxes and passing it along to you in your monthly rent. So taxes are not the only factor, but they're a big factor, and they're also a hidden factor in many other problems.
There's also a reality where the National Taxpayers Union comes in, where they're a factor, but it's a factor that could be changed or, worked on fairly easily too, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Citizens can, at the local level and the state level, form their own taxpayer groups, and they often have spectacular results. If you look at Florida, for example, they use what's called the initiative and referendum process to put issues and laws directly on the state or local ballot that can limit taxes and spending. Florida had what was called the tax cap amendment, requires a supermajority of the legislature or a simple majority of the public before taxes can be increased. The people have a right to vote on them. Florida has also banned the imposition of high taxes on income. Texas has done the same. Now, they don't have the citizen initiative in Texas, but their legislatures have put measures on the ballot in previous years and even this year, asking the voters, do you want to constitutionally ban an income tax or an inheritance tax or extra taxes on investment income? The citizens of Texas have voted on those referendums, and they have voted affirmatively in all of those cases. So they are constitutionally protecting themselves from some of the worst taxes out there, while states like New York and California, unfortunately, well, they haven't been doing that very well since the days of the Proposition 13 property tax revolt in the late 1970s.
I remember that when I was a kid, and all I can tell you is when you bring the American people into the discussions, that has a calming effect on markets, a stabilizing effect on all kinds of things that you don't really realize at first, but when you dig in, you kind of discover. Now, Ron DeSantis says he wants to kind of jettison property tax too, right?
Yeah, he has indeed. And of course, there are a lot of details to work out there, a lot of concerns. What if you ended up trading that for a local income or wage tax or even a statewide one? Fortunately, the state's constitution makes that difficult, but not impossible. And that would probably be a worse thing than having property taxes right now. They may have to work on reforming their systems, making them less burdensome.
Well, and we support all that. Now, affordability, the Republicans did really well on the campaign trail for affordability. They seem to have lost sight of it. They paid for it this last kind of little blip elections. Now they're kind of getting back to square one, right?
Yeah. And they need to do it none too soon. They've made good progress, I think, on energy. That's one area where, at least at the gas pump, prices are starting to come down. And I think the exploration policies of this administration, Congress's pushes here and there, have opened up supplies in the hope that we're not going to have to face those kinds of high gas prices in future years. Other problems, though, you've got high electricity prices. Some of that is blue state policies, these clean energy mandates that are very, very costly for ratepayers to have to bear year after year. That's contributing to it. At the federal level, well, there's not necessarily much they can do to force blue states to give those up, but they can revise all of these tax credits and the like that go to green energy producers and say, look, if there's a market for this, you can survive on your own doing it. You're not going to get subsidies for it anymore.
And this is at least in an energy reality. The green stuff, I'm not saying that we shouldn't pursue knowledge about that. And, I love some of the green stuff in terms of its abilities. What we've got, though, is a reliability problem with some of that they've got to work through, and then affordability reality, whereas a lot of it's expensive and has to be subsidized or it doesn't do well. The reason I bring this up, though, is I think that we really need to do small, tiny nuclear reactors. There's been a lot of progress made in some of that, and that could change the game for everybody.
Yeah, it certainly could. And even in Texas, for example, they're doing research at the university level for small sodium-cooled reactors. In other words, they wouldn't need these huge water supplies that your conventional reactors do. That's great progress. Those kinds of advances.
And that's allowed them to miniaturize this stuff, too, and that's the key to success, too.
Exactly. And so, we do have to pay attention to all of these environmental consequences. We also have to figure out, though, how we have affordable, reliable supplies rather than things that cause us to have to ration our energy, deprive us of the economic progress we need to lift everybody in this country.
All right, what do you expect when they come back next year? What's going to happen? Are they going to really work hard between now and the election, or are they going to be distracted by the election?
Well, I've often thought that in any election year, Congress has no more than about 6 months in which they can accomplish any work before they hit the campaign trail. The very first month, January, they're going to have to work on avoiding another government shutdown. The very next thing they've got to do is a reconciliation process for the budget that actually starts rolling back more of this wasteful spending.
Do you think we'll have a shutdown, or do you think they'll avert it?
I think they'll avert it by the skin of their teeth.
Will they do it by just kicking the can down the road, though?
That's my worry. And I think if they have to do that, they have to kick the can by no more than an inch or a foot, not yards, not miles, and they have to immediately pivot to a better budget for the following fiscal year.
In other words, you can't make all the changes at once, but you can put things in place that can make a difference over time. And that's what they really need to focus on. It seems like they wait till January 30th when it's supposed to end on the 31st to work on it. I know that isn't true in fact, but it feels like that, right?
Yes, it absolutely does. And we're very fortunate that we have some good leadership in the House, especially among some of the committees, even in the Senate, that decide spending issues. They're working on it, and we got to keep the pressure up on them.
Roger that. Pete Sepp, my friend, president of the National Taxpayers Union, thank you so much. We'll have you back soon.
Godspeed, sir. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you want somebody to help you create your own tax group to create accountability locally, all the way up to the general government and beyond, worldwide, think National Taxpayers Union. They're your partner. They've got funding, they've got guidance and studies, and they've got experience of what works in different areas of the country, and they can bring it to your doorstep for solutions. That's the National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching and listening to Liberty Roundtable Live. Back in seconds. We'll look forward to it.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The Trump administration is pausing all immigration applications from those from 19 countries.
The pause puts on hold a wide range of immigration-related decisions, such as green card applications or naturalizations for immigrants from 19 countries that the Trump administration has described as high risk. Earlier this year, people from those countries were banned from U.S. travel. This latest crackdown is part of the president's sweeping immigration changes in the wake of last week's shooting of 2 National Guard troops by an Afghan national. Greg Clugston, Washington.
In Tennessee,
I am humbled beyond belief to stand before you tonight as your next representative.
Republican Matt Van Epps, winner of a special election for a seat in the U.S. House from Middle Tennessee's 7th District.
To President Donald J. Trump, thank you, sir. Your endorsement made the difference, and I will never forget it.
Van Epps defeated Democrat Afton Bain to keep that seat in GOP hands. President Trump is pardoning Texas Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar and his wife in a federal bribery and conspiracy case. Mr. Trump citing what he calls a weaponized justice system under then-President Biden. While describing the U.S.-Russia talks as constructive, a top Kremlin aide says there have been no breakthroughs toward ending the war in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin met yesterday with U.S. presidential envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner at the Kremlin. Not guilty, the plea entered on behalf of the Afghan national charged with murder and assault for last month's shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. First big snowstorm of the season left up to a foot of snow on the ground in some parts of the Northeast. That storm's impact was felt from Ohio all the way up into Maine. Wall Street, the Dow up 171 points, NASDAQ ahead 10. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Just how good is Pure Talk's current deal for unlimited wireless? Well, you might say it's the deal of your lifetime. Because right now, for just $29.95 a month, Pure Talk is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for life. Not your phone's life, your life. This is Pure Talk's top-tier plan. It comes with a crazy fast 5G network along with a 30-gig hotspot. And at just $29.95 a month, there has never been a better opportunity to lock in a ridiculously low rate for as long as you live. And save thousands and thousands of dollars along the way. This plan is normally $65 a month, but if you switch today, you will save over 50% every single month for the rest of your life. See what I mean? It really is the deal of your lifetime. Dial pound 250, say micro. Offer ends 12/7. Some restrictions apply. Details at puretalk.com.
Regrets? Oh, we're all gonna have them. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do. At some point, you're gonna wish you'd done something differently. You know, the woulda, coulda, shouldas. But let me tell you a couple of things you'll never regret. You'll never regret spending extra time talking to your teenager. Trust me. You'll never regret answering your 3-year-old's question about where the water in the bathtub comes from. And I've never seen anyone wish they hadn't sat in the kitchen laughing with their children and telling them goofy stories about when they were kids. Yeah, sure, we're all gonna have regrets, but talking too much with our kids won't be one of them.
No matter what you talk about, love is what they'll hear. A thought from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Visit us at Mormon.org.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
All right, a big old shout out to our buddy Pete Sepp, doing a phenomenal job, president of the National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org, doing a phenomenal job. And I wanted that summary from Pete to really kind of ring true in your minds, ladies and gentlemen. I get that we've got a lot of struggles in America. And I get that it feels like we're not going forward. And I get that taxes are a depressing topic and all that kind of stuff. But I also get that there's some things behind the scenes going on that you ought to know about. And Pete Sepp is the perfect one to bring those to your attention. He does live in around D.C. and work in D.C., and he does a great job on Capitol Hill and everywhere he goes. I've been watching the National Taxpayers Union for literally decades. They do a phenomenal job in all that they do. Pete Sepp is just a class act. I really like the fact that he's nonpartisan. I like the fact that he's got solutions to problems. They've got think tanks and studies. You know, that study that he mentioned about, people fleeing, business owners and leaders fleeing New York, California, and Illinois and running to states like Florida, Texas, North Carolina, and others. That is an important solution when you think about it. Hey, the people in California and New York and some of these places need to really kind of contemplate Illinois. What are they doing to drive their citizens away, to have business owners leave, to have businesses leave and individuals leave? I mean, we're talking every minute to 6 minutes, somebody leaves one of those states. Every minute to 6 minutes, somebody comes to one of these other more friendly states. And the founders envisioned that very reality, going, you know what? We can let the states compete. Let the states on equal footing have an opportunity to woo people and to, et cetera. And I'm just telling you right now, Utah is one of the states that's doing very well and bringing people to the state. And taxes aren't as low as I'd like them to be in the state of Utah. But compared to some of these places like Illinois and California and New York, man, it's a tax haven, even in the state of Utah and Idaho and some of the Rocky Mountain states as well. And especially down in, St. George, Utah, they're promoting liberty everywhere you turn. It's just a delight to see. And so we can't just always focus on the negative and always worry about the problems we got to sometimes celebrate. When it's Christmas time, hearing that Congress has done some things that are positive and that they're working on more and that we got to back them and support them. And, Pete Sepp provides guidance and direction of what we should be supporting and why and what they're doing about things. And just a tremendous organization, NTU.org. I don't get a penny for saying that. I'm just telling you, I think the world of them and the work they're doing. I mentioned last hour some great people doing great things, great organizations, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, Pete Sepp of the National Taxpayers Union. I mean, people are just doing good all over the place. And we've got to look for more good, find more good. In fact, I'm working on a website called Be Best Press that's going to focus on the Melania Trump Be Best No Bully campaign stuff, where we can be our very best. We can be on our best behavior. We can treat each other as if they're the best. Even if we disagree with them on topics, they are the best. They're God's children. So let's work on those things and let's go into Christmas with a real positive attitude, hope for the future, and not just hoping somebody else will do the work, the hard work, but that you'll do the work. All do the work. We, the American people, can do the work. Well, there's a guy doing some of the work now that I find interesting. Eric Trump is in the news. It's not Donald this time. Imagine that. But Eric Trump announced that his father was almost murdered and his dear friend Charlie Kirk was assassinated. That's all true. Charlie Kirk, as you know, founded Turning Point USA, promoted now by Eric Trump to fight back against adversaries who he associates to be part of the left. Now, I want to be very careful with that term adversaries or enemies or, a lot of these people really aren't your enemies. A lot of these people aren't really your adversary. A lot of these people aren't your foe or your enemy. A lot of times they think differently than we do because they were raised differently. Oftentimes it's because they have a bleeding heart, as some would say, meaning that they want to care for people. And oftentimes we miss the mark when we want to care for people because we get misplaced. Our intentions to care for people, to love our neighbor, is a good thing. But then when we try to force government in the middle of it, we've kind of missed the mark. So a lot of times people just miss the mark on things. They don't mean bad or ill. And oftentimes polite discussions, rather than attacks, can really help us go, we're not so different. You know, you think that with different cultures and different societies and different, when people speak a different language than you and this and that, you kind of think, oh my gosh, they're so different. We're nothing alike. Maybe true culturally, maybe true from the way you wear your hair or whatever. But in the end of the day, we're more alike than we think. We all want to just be left alone. We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want that for our loved ones. Pretty much around the world, rank and file, people feel that way. They just want to have a stable, good life. They want a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of relaxation time. Many are willing to work plenty hard, right? We all want a lot of the same things. Anyway, Eric now encourages supporters to donate $50 or more to Turning Point USA. And if you do, then you'll receive a hardcover copy of his new book. His new book is called Under Siege: My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. It's a book about his family's struggles and advocating for America, which he believes showcases the challenges America's facing. Wow. He says, especially in light of Charlie's death. And I agree. I mean, it's a pivot point in America. Will we all be Charlie Kirks? Meaning, will we stand for liberty? Will we engage and not judge? Will we advocate for our cause and let others do the same? And in the court of public opinion, let the best man win? And I say man, I mean mankind, right? I don't mean man as opposed to woman. Mankind. I mean, now we've got a woman leading his organization. I don't think Charlie could be any more happy from heaven knowing that his wife is carrying the ball that he worked so hard and gave his life for. But Turning Point Action is a 501c4 organization. It focuses on promoting social welfare. That doesn't mean money welfare. It means social welfare, the good of our nation, how we talk and associate with one another, right? Advocacy for free markets and capitalism, not to mention civic action and education. We're all working on it together. Turning Point is a leader in that and remains so, and good for them. Contributions to the organization, by the way, are non-tax deductible. That's kind of interesting to me, too. Non-tax deductible for that. But they're doing a tremendous job. So you can get a copy of Eric's book. If you donate $50 or more, he'll send you a hardcover copy. And it focuses on, a lot of good stuff. It's called Under Siege: My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. And I think his family has done a lot to try to save the nation. I don't think they've been perfect. I really want to double down on the president's wife, the first lady, Melania Trump, and her effort for Be Best. Somebody was telling me about they were seeing some of the Christmas decorations that the White House unveiled, and the media was invited and came and, talked about all that kind of stuff. And in that was a Be Best, kind of an ornament or whatever, promoting the Be Best campaign of Melania Trump. And I know the media just dismissed her out of hand and went, oh my gosh, your husband's the worst offender. How dare you? But we got to remember that if anybody's going to have a sway over President Trump, it's going to be his wife. And I really appreciate Melania Trump trying to focus on Be Best for all of us. We all ought to try to be the best we can. We all ought to try to encourage others to be the best they can. I mean, it's a worthy cause, in my opinion, right? Anyway, I really think that's great news, and I commend Eric Trump for writing the book. When the title's called Under Siege, though, I have a little bit of a hesitation when we say that the nation's under siege. I get that we've got jackals on every side, it feels like. We've got an invasion of illegals. We've got the Democrats that are literally, throwing people in jail left and right whenever they can. I mean, I think that it's tough times for America for sure, but I want to hesitate a little bit when we say America's under siege. I mean, I'm the guy that wants to write a book called A Campaign for Civility. Think about if I write a book called Campaign for Civility or Clarion Call for Civility, and that's my speaking tour and public persona and promotion, and Eric Trump's running around saying, hey, nation under siege. Which one do you really support? I mean, I agree that we're under siege in some ways, if you loosely use the term. But I want to be a little bit cautious when we start talking about, I mean, under siege makes it sound like we're just in a full outright war. I don't really see it that way. I think that the politicians might be that way. When you look at the divide in Congress and the divide in some of these things, it feels that way when the always Trumpers meet the never Trumpers. I mean, you can see the divide full blown. When you see white versus black and Barack Obama and the divide that was engendered back then, several years ago, you can see the divides in America. And it feels like we're under siege when you look at the politics and when you look at the media. No doubt about it. But when you step back and you walk into a restaurant and somebody holds the door for you, not caring what color anybody is, and when somebody does something and somebody else says thank you, or when somebody is struggling with their groceries and somebody stops and helps them and they, load the groceries or whatever, you don't feel like we're under siege. You feel like this is the best country that the world's ever known. How do we keep that? How do we make America or keep America great? Maybe I ought to run and be president and call it Keep America Great. What do you think of that? I'm just kidding. I wouldn't run for president. I'm just saying there's so much we can do and so much positive stuff that we got to focus on and be aware of. When you run around this great country, you just go, wow, the founders were onto something. We need to be onto the same thing, huh? All right, hang tight. More in seconds.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
This is a battle between truth and deceit. A battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com. All right, so I'm talking about this Eric Trump book called Under Siege. If you donate $50 to the Turning Point USA group, you get a hardcover copy of the book, Under Siege. It's Eric Trump's family's fight to save America. I think that fight's real. And I don't disagree with the general idea that, hey, we got to fight for our country. That's no doubt. But this Under Siege thing is a little bit, to me, I don't know. If we're not careful, we get caught up in this hyperbole thing where it's just like, it's over the top and you state the case too hard. Some people come to me and they say, Sam, I want to just slip my wrists when I listen to this stuff. You got to think about it and say, when you're in America and you go to a restaurant or you go to a school event or you go to whatever, don't you just think you live in the greatest country on the face of the earth? We're pretty much free to choose and do what we want to do. We're pretty much able to focus on what we want to focus on. We're pretty much able to, right? So just think about it that way. And I don't really think we're under siege. I do think that we've got a lot of struggles in America, but I also think we've got a lot of good. And I think it's up to us to bring the good to the table. I think Melania's Be Best campaign is a real starting point. And I hope to emulate that and say, I don't want to be a bully. I don't want to just attack everybody. I don't want to try to just belittle people and prove that I'm right and superior or dominant or whatever. I think we need to stop that in America. I think there's a lot of people that are braver angels, and there's a lot of good people doing good things. And we need to really acknowledge those good things and bring those good things to the forefront. Right now in America, you have the time to prepare for even tougher times, which I believe are coming. And if we prepare for tougher times, we can make a difference. And that's what we need to do, is be a light to others in this world. To say, you know what? I get that things are tough and things are frustrating, but there's so much good going on. I can serve my neighbor. I can be on the Lord's errand. I will minister to those around me. I will, pray for those who are suffering. I will be, hopefully, a breath of fresh air. I will be somebody who encourages, not discourages. Somebody who lifts, not downs. I want to pull down power, right? But I want to lift individuals. And I want to lift the great ideas. This guy, his name is Matt Van Epps. Matt Van Epps won the U.S. House special election in Tennessee. And I guess with 95% of the results in, a former Army helicopter pilot, a Republican, secured 53.9% of the vote. And I guess the Democrat lost, and there you go. So Donald Trump's all excited about that. Donald Trump celebrated Van X's victory. He did so on Truth Social, noting that the strong opposition that Van X faced from the Democrats was real. They spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to try to stop Van X, but no cigar, as some would say. And what I find interesting about this discussion is this. I'm applauding another conservative, hopefully, in Congress. But, man, we need a lot more conservatives in Congress than we've got. And I sure hope we don't have an attack fest where Republicans are attacking Republicans, and we've got to work together on things and be a little less critical and a lot more appreciative of the efforts others make. And we, the people, need to be engaged. Politics or caring for your country is not really political. It's a moral discussion. But you got to remember, it's not a spectator sport. That's for sure, right? All right, I want to talk about this company that I like called Health Code. I don't get a penny for promoting them. Healthcode.com is their website, HLTHcode.com, I think it is. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when we wonder how the economy is doing, you hear these inflationary numbers and this and that costs that and this is whatever, and it's expensive. Well, this is the most candid email that I've ever received about the economy, about where we kind of stand, about how we're doing economically. And we're not doing very well, in my humble opinion. We're really not. But this email that I got from this company that I support really lays it out nicely. Health Code is a company offering nutritional shakes. They have had to announce a price increase due to rising costs in ingredients, shipping, and packaging. They've been in business since 2020, so they got a pretty good handle on it. And they started out with certain prices and everything else. They say ingredients costs have increased 40%. That is huge. And I mean, these herbal drinks that I drink, I mean, it's really a whole meal replacement kind of a drink. And so the ingredients are all over the place. There's a lot of different ingredients, and they're all up 40%. I mean, you think inflation's out of control? That is out of control. And because, again, the ingredients cover such a wide spectrum of food, it just tells me, man, the inflation is way more out of control than we think it is. They say shipping is up 35%. And packaging costs, they say, have nearly doubled. So you start out and you say the ingredients are 40% more, shipping's 35% more, and the packaging is 50% or doubled. Wow. That's why I say this is one of the most candid discussions about where they believe the economy is. It's frightening, really. In response, for example, the price of Health Code now, they say will rise 66 cents per serving. That's effective January 5th, 2026. So coming up right after the new year. They say this adjustment changes subscription prices. Used to be $50, now it's $59. The one-time price used to be $60. Now it's going to $70. And the co-founder, a doctor from Brigham Young University by the name of Joel Bickman, emphasized the company's commitment to high-quality ingredients and maintaining product standards without reducing portion sizes or quantities. The new subscription price per meal will be $3.99 when you look at it per meal. But if you take the $50 and you increase it to $60, that's a 20% increase, folks. And if you take the 60 and increase it to 70, it's a little. So it's amazing. Inflation is just beating us in America. And the only way I know to reduce it is to not print so much money. They cannot keep printing money. It creates a moral hazard in the marketplace that's just beyond imagination. It's got to stop. It really does. And one of the best ways we can deal with that is we need to talk to our congressmen and our senators and say, listen, we need you guys to really start to lower taxes. We need you guys to spend less. We need to return to honest money. There's a lot of things we can do about this rather than just complain. But I thought that was one of the most candid inflationary reality checks that I've seen. I mean, think about that. The ingredients are up 40%, shipping's up 35%, and packaging doubled. And that's just, wow, folks. That's huge. I'm going to keep buying Health Code because I believe it's one of the best drinks on the planet. HLTHcode.com is, I think, where you go for that. Anyway, I want to finish by talking about Giving Tuesday. I know that was yesterday, but I really want to mention it again. I think it's important. Giving Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, stand up, speak out, and make an impact. A small gift today powers independent media and strengthens our mission, ensuring that the message of liberty reaches those who need it the most. This Giving Tuesday, be a light in a time of darkness. Your support helps spread uplifting, Christ-centered principles through the media that stands for truth, freedom, and moral courage. Fuel the mission this Giving Tuesday. I know it's the day after, but I want to keep it rolling. Every dollar strengthens the voice of independent media. It tells the tale of truth. Your support absolutely makes a difference. And I want to say this. If you guys think I'm doing a good job, then fund us. LovingLiberty.net. If you think, on the other hand, others are doing a better job, fund them. Okay, I'm not just begging you for money. I am telling you that if we want good to prosper, then we better fund and promote good. If you want bad to prosper, then just do nothing or support the bad, right? I mean, those are the choices that we have. Well, I want to highlight this. I know I highlighted this yesterday as well, but it's really worth repeating. A GOP senator introduces legislation to reject or end dual citizenship. Americans must choose exclusive allegiance. TheGatewayPundit.com with this article. And it's Republican Bernie Morin of Ohio. He unveiled what's called the Exclusive Citizenship Act of 2025. It's a sweeping bill that would ban dual citizenship. Okay, you either have to pick the United States or you'll risk losing your United States citizenship. Morneau, I think is how you say his name, is a naturalized American who denounced his Colombian citizenship decades ago. And he says this is a way to protect national loyalty and to prevent citizens from having dual allegiances or conflicting alliances. He says this: one of the greatest honors of my life was when I became an American citizen at 18. I did so at the first opportunity I possibly could, he told Fox News. It was an honor to pledge openly, clearly, my allegiance to the United States of America and only to the United States of America. Being a citizen of this country is a privilege. And if you want to be an American, it's all or nothing, he says. Amen to that. Let's get it done. And let's work on ways to make sure that the people who really want to come to America for the right reasons can do so legally. And all the criminals, let's have nothing but justice. as we protect we the people. Anyway, there you have it. Hope 2 hours in the can on the radio, a good 45-minute TV show, and hopefully we can tell the tale of truth and spread the word. I ask for your help. If you have social media accounts, share it. Spread the word, would you please? All right, we're syndicated by lovingliberty.net. Check out the around-the-clock talk hosts. We do a great job, and I commend all of them and commend them to you. God save the Republic of the United States of America.